Hello, and welcome to the You, Me, We Therapy podcast. I'm your host, Jackie, and this is a podcast where I bring to you the topic of emotions and explore them, what they mean to us, how they integrate into our lives, how they affect us. And the reason I'm interested in that is because I'm a counsellor and I practice therapy with my clients. So I believe emotions can teach us a lot. In today's episode, it's a second part of my fantastic guest, Nikema Taylor. You would have heard her in the previous episode where we discussed spirituality in therapy. And this is going to be a succession of different episodes where I talk about spiritual practices and therapeutic practices as well. So this will be the third part in that particular theme, so to say. The first one was called Spirit and Therapy. Last week's was Spirit and Therapy with Nikema Taylor. This is part 2 of Spirit and Therapy with Nikema Taylor. So I hope you enjoy the episode. This podcast is not a substitute for seeking professional mental health guidance and advice. If anything in these episodes are upsetting or cause you to want further exploration, please seek professional mental health guidance and advice. And if you are unable to keep yourself safe, please take yourself to accident and emergency. If they have movies about therapists, I don't think Hollywood portrays therapists in a good light at all. We're always having affairs with our clients, breaking rules, kind of all mixed up in all kind of like unethical practices. When actually, for the reality is, many therapists actually, I believe, are secret spiritual healers. We use words and we listen with our empathic ears and we offer compassion. But the worth of a good therapist is their ability to really build that rapport and have a sense of service to others type of a feel. You know?
Yes. 100%. Yes, absolutely. And I don't know whether to see this as a negative thing. It might be construed as that, but not a way. We have a way of manipulating the situation that to help the client feel better. We've kind of they've learnt or taught us how to guide and. Oh my goodness, English really does fail me. Maybe manipulate is not the right word. However,
mold,
we've mastered
direct,
the art.
influence, encourage. Yes.
Yes, absolutely. My goodness, English. Anyway, so yes, absolutely. And it's all about them feeling better about themselves, feeling good. And I don't know about you, but that's kind of euphoric to me where I've actually helped. It is a little bit I don't know, selfish, where I've helped someone, they've and it's an ego boost as well, like they've said, oh my God, you've helped me so much and this is what. But I definitely, when I do get those compliments, I take it in, I love it, but I also give it back to them and said, if it wasn't for them stepping out, using the tools that we suggested, did the interventions, etc., they wouldn't have reached where they did. So even though I like the praise, I also bring it back to them to say, actually, it's you did the work, you called, you attended, you did the work, I was just facilitating, and I appreciate what you're saying to me.
No, I get it.
I know, right?
It's such a sense of achievement when you see somebody transform over weeks,
really?
or to do something that other people take for granted, but for them, it's life-changing.
It's a large thing, absolutely.
And I think with spirituality, if I think about it in my truest sense, why would I want to lean into something that I can't really touch, not tangible, visits me elusively in dreams and like cryptic messages? What does this mean? Why would somebody want to go down the route of putting any sort of faith or hope in something like that?
Yeah.
I'd say validation. We want to know that what we're doing is right. And I think that's what therapy can do for
Yes.
somebody. You can sit opposite somebody and they can justify and help validate thoughts and ideas that you're not quite sure if it's right or wrong.
Yes.
You're bouncing your perspective off of another
Yes.
person, and it's providing a sense of validation all the way to the point that ultimately you can self-validate. And so I think what
Oh, 100.
spirituality kind of does for people is life's just kooky, isn't it? It's just full of confusion.
Yes.
And there's so much grey area with no validation really happening. So when people lean into a spiritual side of
Yes.
that, there's a sense of having a sense of, I can't see, touch or taste
Yes.
particular things, but I know there's something validating my
Yes.
experience in this life.
Yes. I completely agree with that. 100%. Because there is, isn't there? There's things that are intangible, but you know it's real. You can't touch it, but you know it's there. You feel it. And that could be intuition. That could be an energy that you sense when you meet someone for the first time. But yeah, it's very important. I think we get taught these five senses: touch, taste, smell, sound, and sight. But I argue that we have more than the five senses, but it's not necessarily always known how to practice and sharpen it and make it something that we use on a day-to-day, week-to-week basis. But hopefully in the future, I'm hoping that that's something that we learn the art of. And I think meditation, silencing the senses, going within, being more present with self, loving to learn self, it will allow that sense or those other senses that we never speak about or don't know much about come to life.
Yeah, I think that's a great bit of understanding there. So even with like a condition, say for example OCD, which CBT would be if you went to the doctor with OCD, they'd want to get you to see a CBT therapist at some point.
Correct.
And with OCD, it's about many different things, but one of the features that comes up in it is rituals, right? Somebody does something repetitively because they've attributed something like, oh, they need to check the doors locked 5 times, otherwise something awful is going to happen to my mother. You know, like they connected a habit of something like that, and it's come out in a maladaptive way. It's affecting their life in a negative way. But yet rituals are things that are in religious practice. So it just goes to show that the brain works by doing things repetitively, and it can be done on a negative basis and a positive basis.
In regards to how the brain works, I feel like if people are taught the basics in layman's terms, how the brain works, it really does help them be mindful, or not even mindful, reflect whilst they're doing the thing, whether it's the ritualistic practice or the compulsions or the anxieties or the rumination or whatever it is. Once we learn how the brain functions, it really does help them to reflect whilst they're doing it and be self-aware. I think maybe that's the probably right phrase, whilst they're doing it, and catching themselves quicker to then changing their behaviors and changing their thought patterns to help themselves. And I'm not anyway into, like, I love learning about the brain, but I'm not an expert. But I definitely find that the more I learn about how our brains work, the more it helps me work with my brain. And just been nicer to myself about the way in which I have learnt to think and feel according to.
With spirituality and therapy, I feel where if I had my ideal therapy type job, it would be mixing a bit of metaphysical world and therapy together. Because I think if I think of like ideas of manifestation and thoughts becoming things, my mind's always gone to someone with ADHD, because I'm slightly like that. My mind's all over the place. I can go down a spiral of, like, I don't know, fixating on something that's really got no relevance to things I need to do for the day. And I think, well, now what have I manifested? You know, like, but then on a negative a negative level, our thoughts,
Yes.
we can go down the tangent of having anxiety, oh my God, and
Yes.
catastrophizing, and then something happens to
Yes.
confirm it in your life. Thoughts become things, and it's like a metaphysical idea of
Yes.
manifestation. Yet in practicality, thoughts do become things. They become
Yeah.
behaviors. It affects our relationships with people, and
Mm-hmm.
then feeds back into a self-fulfilling prophecy that can be quite self-sabotaging on a negative basis. So it confirms that your thoughts are becoming actual things in your life.
100%, and I agree with that. That if that therapy was more metaphysical, I feel like we will all benefit, however neurologically diverse we are. 100%, 100%, and I love that. Because I was saying earlier, and I think you agree that there's some things that we can't tangibly hold and hold on to, but we know it's real, and that will really help us navigate through this world when we talk about things that we can't tangibly hold but we know are real. So any trainers who are listening to this podcast, maybe there's a way of using the metaphysics within these different types of therapeutics teaching curriculums, so we can even become even better, because I think we're fantastic therapists out there, yourself and I included, but we can definitely benefit from that, from having more spirituality, metaphysics within the curriculum.
Human design.
Mm.
It's about.
I don't know much about it.
It's about when understanding someone's birth chart and chakra alignment, and understanding which particular characteristics lean into a particular chakra more prominently, for example, and then using methods like coaching to support somebody to navigate the metaphysical world in their day-to-day life. So,
and I like that because it uses other principles. I like that.
So as well, I know you've done a bit of you have a background in African studies, and Africa is very spiritual. I'm not saying that other places in the world are not, but and you and I are both from Caribbean backgrounds, which I think lean into spirituality with ease. Really, I mean, the dream world and the reality are two in one in the same. If somebody's had a dream about something, you got, and they come and tell you, like you expect to have it knocking on your door, like they're serious. So it's not like there's much differentiation. If I could have a serious conversation with somebody within the similar culture to me about, like I said, something premonition, and it would have as much weight to it as something of God. This conversation we're having now. So culture plays a part. Why do you think that is?
West Indian culture, the Caribbean culture, they're definitely high on intuition. If they've dreamed something, or if maybe sometimes a bit maybe superstitious slightly, it depends on what type of Caribbean country you come from. From the even before the enslavement of the African people moving them over to the West Indies, there was some African people already there as well. But yeah, I feel like superstitions, intuitions, all that sort of stuff came from ancient practices, but also they had to endure a lot of trauma, and they had no therapy. There was no therapeutic practices and ways to, manage the traumas that they've been through. So I don't know whether, I could be wrong, but it might have been a way of navigating their traumas. It might have been.
I think that's an
I could be
amazing
completely wrong there.
idea. No, I think you're really onto something there, actually, because like I said, validation earlier, you lean into something spiritual when you're got nothing else to go on. And if for them, they had an understanding of a creator, a spirit of this, an understanding of this, then if you're stuck in the base of a ship and you don't know how long you're gonna be there, you'd be calling on anything that you have any sort of remote
everything.
That would be some serious manifestation. And I think who knows what it's put into the ethers to empower our people this many generations down the line. And I find it interesting how in the world of science, now we hear a lot about things like epigenetics. You could tell who's going to have maybe, you know, someone's got a high risk of diabetes or because of previous such and such is in the bloodline, or somebody can, you know, epigenetics now is a known thing. I've always wondered, okay, if that's the case, so when does the conversation go over to cultural groups then? And what does it say, for example, about Afro-Caribbean people maybe many generations down from ancestors who had lived hundreds of years of adversity and the manifestations that they had done to the point that I credit them for their freedom. I don't credit the, you know, the Wilberforces and the things. I understand the political reasons must have been somebody had to go to the parliament to advocate, but who would have been advocating if not for revolts and people protesting? So the level of manifestation that would have come from such power to overthrow adversity like that, I think it can affect us on a positive with our fiery ways. So on a positive. So like epigenetics can be looked at I think in metaphysical senses as well, like that, someone's character, someone's cultural identity, the things, themes, they're about identifying themes that existed, or the progenerator of that theme was many generations before being the present time.
I agree, 100% agree with that. 100%. It's so interesting. And I wonder if there isn't already some studies happening as we speak, what conclusions and what results come from that. And I'm sure it might take maybe years even to find out. And it depends on how they set up the whole experiment. But that sort of research is definitely needed, 100% needed. Yeah.
And I think it brings us back round nicely into a circle, actually, to close down, because you mentioned research, and at the beginning of what we were talking about, I was saying CBT can teach somebody to be like a scientist in their own life, and the basis of science is research. So somebody could have I'm sure there might be CBT methods where somebody has to record maybe what they're doing, and then be able to put an outcome measure, a goal or something like that, which is the basis of a research project, basically.
It is indeed. It 100% is indeed. And there's enough tools in CBT to record and use different types of modalities, because obviously different people work differently and think differently. So there's different ways to manage the results or do the experiment. That's one of the things I do love about cognitive behavioral therapy, is that it has a different way, different ways of being versatile with the same intervention, because we have so many different types of people, even from the same background, same ages, same problems. They could be miles apart and different. Research and knowledge is empowering. If we have more knowledge of self, then we're able to just work differently, see the world differently, see others differently.
Thank you. I think that's really beautiful.
Yeah. You're welcome. Thanks for having me on. My goodness, yes, I've had a blast.
Where do we find Nikema Taylor therapy?
There's a few places. The first one, or one of the few places, is on Instagram. It's tailored therapy, TAYLORD therapy, or one hash. Well, it's an at or one word, tailored therapy. And I'm on YouTube as well, and it's Nikema Tailored Therapy on YouTube. And I'm planning, it'll be launched very soon, to do a Patreon. And on this Patreon, you will be able to subscribe, and I will be working on giving you guys some beautiful guided meditation, imagery as well, to help guided meditation. And one particular feature would be to work with biological females, women with a womb, where we can look at how to let go of any blockages, sexual blockages around the womb space. But we will talk about the mind, the pituitary gland, the pineal gland, using therapeutic tools as well. So yeah, if you want to know more about that, they're happy to contact me on IG, send me a message on YouTube. My email is tailoredtherapy@gmail.com. And yeah, you're welcome. You're all welcome.
Thank you. I'm going to put all of those in the description box so people can check that out for themselves
Yes.
as well.
Thank you for having me, and all the best with this beautiful podcast. Thanks. I love what you're doing.
Nikema.